to the point that most workplace accidents happen there, including a suicide attempt by a coworker. What I can say is that it's the most tense and uncomfortable place I've ever had to work. Until at one point I fixed my gaze, I could say with complete certainty that it was watching me.
My name is Christian. I live in Lavalol, and I'm going to tell you some of the experiences I had while working at the Retiro bus terminal. But also, in the end, I'll share an experience that I believe was the most intense of my entire life, and it happened during a family gathering. In 2011, when I was 24 years old, I started working at a food place as a sandwich maker. I was in the preparation area and, as you can probably imagine, located at the Retiro bus terminal. The truth is that even though it's a chaotic place in every way, the job itself was generally good. The atmosphere with my coworkers and even the bosses was excellent, so we worked very comfortably. And I think that, like in most places, over time you get to know people, you hear stories that make you think, put you on alert, and maybe that's why by paying more attention you start to notice certain anomalies. I was assigned to the afternoon shift, and that time the air conditioning in my area had broken down. So the manager, without much fuss, told me to go ahead. I moved straight to the other sandwich shop located at the back, where there was something particular that has to do exactly with this story. Although both places were very similar, in this one there was an entrance to a hallway right in front, which was usually closed. And it connected you in turn to an old storeroom used for maintenance. And this is when everything started. I arrived, settled in, worked alone, and then something very strange happened. It was very hot, so I turned on the air conditioner, and even though it was on, I felt different changes in temperature on my body. It was as if someone was brushing against me. It's very hard to explain. And it wasn't just on one side of my body, but all over, and it kept changing. I kept working, but it started to distract me, and not only that. It was practically from one second to the next that I started to have a horrible migraine, and I imagine it was all related. I got myself a glass of water, and while I was drinking it, I looked outside and saw something amazing. I saw, with a clarity that's impossible to describe, a shadow shaped like a person. I'll never forget it. It was completely black and moved slowly. This shadow walked about a meter or so. And when it reached this shutter that closed off the hallway leading to the storeroom, it passed right through it without any trouble. In other words, it went straight through. You can imagine that I stood completely still, but more than scared, I was amazed. I had never seen anything like that in my entire life. I searched everywhere for someone else who might have seen this, but found no one. Because I started to imagine that maybe it was just a result of the migraine I had. But I also realized that wasn't true because everything was happening in a very strange way. What I did was put down the glass of water, go outside and walk straight to this shutter. I wanted to try to see a little more and, of course, make sure that what I saw wasn't a hallucination. And what happened there was unique. I walked up to the entrance of this hallway, up to this shutter that blocked the way, and it was almost a meter before I got there, that I feel like something stops me dead in my tracks. I couldn't see it, but I did feel it. I felt it in my chest, my stomach, my shoulders. There was a force I couldn't see, but it kept me from moving forward.
I can't say, I wouldn't call it demonic, but it did feel like this entity or whatever it was angry.
That's when I truly felt afraid, so I quickly turned and went back into the sandwich shop to work. I tried not to pay attention because I felt like something bad was there and I had no intention of provoking it, even though maybe I already had. I even moved to another counter so I wouldn't see that shutter, but while I was working, I felt those temperature changes again and something else. Not only did I feel it, but I also heard something breathing next to my face, and I also got a kind of slap in the middle of my back. And I can assure you it was a person's hand that did this, but I was alone in the kitchen. Both the manager and the salespeople were at the front. So I turned around, and the only thing I could see and confirm was that no one but me was in the kitchen. I dropped everything and ran to the front. No one really understood, and I was so nervous. Basically, it was that my boss asked me in private what had happened to me, and I had no choice but to confess everything in detail. What happened was that my boss asked me in private what had happened. I had to confess everything to him. Did he see it? How did he react? Just like my coworkers, he didn't believe me and took it as a joke. In fact, they even thought I was lying just so I could get some rest. And I realized that trying to convince them was useless and unnecessary, so I dropped the subject. But a few days later, something very particular happened that gave me a break. I was finishing up work, and before leaving, the other supervisor assigned to the next shift came over. And it was him who asked me about what I had seen. The truth is, I didn't want to tell him at first because I thought the jokes would start again, but they didn't. Because he was the one who confessed to me that he had seen this shadow several times. He had heard noises and noticed strange unexplained smells. In short, he was telling me and confirming part of what I had already experienced. We chatted for a little while and he told me something else that left me stunned. From what he was able to find out, it was old Perez, a former maintenance worker who was practically forced into retirement due to staff cuts. And this man, according to what many people say, was crazy about his job. He practically lived at the terminal, often staying late, arriving early, and when he was fired, his life fell apart. And it was practically within weeks, old Perez died. And from that moment on, some people started seeing this shadow coming in and out of this maintenance area, and that's why some believe it's him. Over time, the storeroom was relocated, leaving the one abandoned and closed. However, Perez's soul still frequents it, just like in those years when he worked tirelessly. From my point of view, honestly, beyond this beautiful story, I think no one is really sure if it's about this man or not. What is certain is that I wasn't the only one who saw him, and in some way that gives me peace of mind.
During the 5 years I worked at the terminal, I heard many stories, both from my coworkers and from people at the terminal, like ticket sellers and workers from the shops. And that was the case with Los Cielos Pizzeria, located at Bridge 3 in front of Platform 45. To the point that most of the workplace accidents happened there. There was even a suicide attempt by a coworker, cutting his arm 3 times. My story in this place, this pizzeria, happened in mid-2015, right in the middle of winter, during the night shift. The manager at the time gave me the opportunity for the cashier position, so every night the pizzeria became my workplace. Of course, an important detail, I'm a big fan of sweet candies. I always brought a small bag to share with coworkers, leaving it on the counter where we kept cigarettes and liquor. And around 2:15 in the morning, it was very quiet. There wasn't a single customer. It was just the pizza maker, the 2 waiters, one helping the pizza maker clean in the kitchen and the other cleaning the dining area. And well, I was cleaning and organizing the fridge. Out of nowhere, a nauseating smell came from the display fridge, and whatever it was contaminated everything, the whole place. We looked at each other, wondering where the smell came from. And there was no explanation, since there were no passengers in the hallway, nor any maintenance people working on the pipes or unclogging the bathroom to justify the smell. We went on with our work, and as if nothing had happened, the bag of candies fell to the floor and scattered all over the place. We all have dreams, Ice. The way the bag of candies fell, it was as if someone had slapped it violently, making it fall with a lot of force. My classmates helped me pick up the candies, and we stayed talking for the rest of the night. And they also shared with me other experiences that happened there. I couldn't say for sure what's up with that place, and even less with this one, because it's, as they say, the epicenter of bad and unexplainable things. What I can say is that it's the most tense and uncomfortable place I've ever had to work in.
This experience happened to me in 2019. At that time, my sister had been in a relationship for a while. And to make it official, they organized a lunch so both families could meet. We didn't know anyone, not even him, and this is important, so you can understand the magnitude of everything that happened afterward. When we arrived, we found a beautiful, clean, spacious, and well-decorated house. My sister was super happy, so seeing all this, we understood that they were a good couple. It was still fairly early, so we sat in the living room to chat a bit and get to know each other. Then something striking happened, possibly starting all this.
Something happened to me that had never happened before in my life until that moment, and that was feeling like I was being watched. As if someone who isn't from this earthly plane was watching me, but watching me constantly. Until at one point I fixed my gaze on a piece of furniture with decorations and things placed near the window, feeling it. But I can say with complete certainty that whatever was watching me was standing there, even if my eyes say otherwise. Because other than the people who were sitting, there was no one exactly where I felt someone was watching me.
That was it. I didn't give it much importance and I definitely didn't share it with the others. So everything went on as normal up to a certain point, because what I'm about to tell you is something I could never do, like I told you. The purpose was to bring the two families together so they could get to know each other, so there were quite a few of us. Honestly, I didn't count them, but I figured there were about 12 or 13 people for sure. When the barbecue was ready, we went to sit at the table and something caught my attention. While we were all sitting down, starting to eat, a woman of about 45 years old or so had stayed sitting on the living room couch. She looked sad or angry, judging by her face, and she was just staring at the floor as if she was thinking. I didn't know who she was or why she was there, but it was easy to guess she argued with someone in the family and stayed a few minutes. After a while, I stopped seeing her and didn't know where she was. But I didn't pay much attention to it either, because after all, it was the first time I was seeing these people. That day I had to go to work in the afternoon, so I finished eating and unfortunately I had to leave while. The meeting continued as normal, but something happened that still chills me to the bone to this day. Sometime later, after I had gained more trust with Beto, my brother-in-law, during a conversation at my house, he told me something I had no idea about. He had been a widower for 10 years at that time, and after a lot of effort, he was able to start over again. He met my sister and in some ways started a new chapter in his life. I thanked him for telling me because I didn't know about this and it was a real shock. When he grabs his wallet, he takes out a photo of his late wife. And he shows her to me in that photo. She was 43 years old. It was months before she passed away, and she was exactly the same woman I had seen at the family gathering, sitting alone in the living room.
Even though the relationship between my sister and Beto didn't work out, I formed a friendship with him. And personally, I think and believe that he loved and still loves his late wife very, very much. And deep, deep inside, he hasn't accepted her departure, her loss, and that love and that refusal. It's like he can't let her go, and her soul or spirit remains in the earthly realm.